He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. We have a long conversation with Emma Jo Morris that I will play in a little bit. We just concluded that, but I do want to roll through a couple of news items before we get into that. You guys know Emma Jo from the Laptop from Hell. That's a big scoop, and I think she's now in the lead in terms of most Marlow Show appearances. It's good to get a Marlow and Friends. So it can't just be all monologue every day. But Trump and Zelensky going back and forth on a Russia-Ukraine peace deal that is being discussed right now. This is the hottest item of the day. And Trump is saying something that I think is going to be quite obvious, which is that Ukraine is not getting back certain areas that Russia took under Obama. This is the Donbass and the Crimea. And this is something that this is not the new territory from the latest war. This is territory from the prior war. During the Obama years, I think this is a no-brainer that Russia is going to keep this. These are, at this point, it's very hard to see even how Ukraine would take that area back. And Zelensky is saying no way. That is, he will walk away from a peace deal. And so it's clear to me Zelensky just wants the gravy train. He doesn't really want the war to stop. He just wants, because once the war stops, then he's not going to be necessarily relevant political player, and he's going to have to come up with a new way to get money into his country. You know, he could use China Belt and Road. I'm sure he could get paid off that way, but he's sure focused on how to keep the gravy train going. And so he's not looking for a quick end to this. Trump unleashed a blistering truth bomb. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. The statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations, Trump says, with Russia in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama and is not even the point of the discussion. Totally right by Trump, as usual, on the foreign policy stuff. For whatever reason, he just sees it so clearly almost all the time. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses for many years before the Obama handover major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statement like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting to save an average of 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We are very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess that would never have started if I were president. Every word of this is true, well stated, and it just shows you, all of you who are still holdouts, that Zelensky is a credible guy and is not playing some sort of an angle here. He's not getting Crimea back. There's just no way. So that's where we begin. But Trump, this will be framed in the media as Trump is letting Putin keep land that's seized from Ukraine. That's the headline, the UK Telegraph, London Telegraph. But it's been Russian since the Obama years. And that was never the point of this war that we're in currently. All right. Abrego Garcia stuff is not really advanced. We got Democrats down there in El Salvador. I pulled a cut of one of them. This is Congresswoman Shari. I was not even familiar with her, but apparently she's heading down to El Salvador. Let's see what she's got to say.
Hey, everyone. This is Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari. We have had a very long, productive day here in El Salvador. I've been here with 3 of my colleagues, strongly advocating for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from El Salvador, where he has been wrongfully deported to a prison here by Donald Trump. We also were able to speak with the family directly. They are very concerned, and they want him to know that his family and the country is trying to get him home. One of the most important meetings that we had was with the U.S. Embassy. Nothing in the conversation leads me to believe that the United States government, aka Donald Trump or his administration, have taken any steps to actually facilitate the release and therefore comply with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision. So this is a constitutional crisis and issue. So now one of the steps that we've taken today.
So you got it. So that's the key word. This is going to be their convicted felon. They're just going to say constitutional crisis over and over again. No charisma. This person represents Arizona. Why is she, if he's a Maryland man, why is she the one who's down there? She has no impact. 33-year-old congresswoman has zero influence over Trump's policies. She's just creating content for me. And it just shows you that they've got nothing. And this will go on for a while, but they're getting their messaging is key. They want to announce this is a constitutional crisis, and they are absolutely committed to dying on this hill. And they will never talk about Garcia's past crimes. If you want to stay active, strong, and independent for years to come, you need to start paying attention to your bone and joint health today, not when it's too late. That's why I've got something for you. A free 60-second bone and joint health risk assessment that shows you exactly where you stand. Quick, real-time insights into your mobility and joint health from the comfort of your own home. This is like a wake-up call. It could be the wake-up call that you need. If you're already dealing with aches, stiffness, or joint discomfort, your body is giving you warning signs, so don't ignore them. Take the 1-minute quiz and you can take control of your health. Go to Juvent, that's JUVENT.com/Marlow, Juvent.com/Marlow. Take the quiz, get your results instantly, and your future self will thank you. All right, check this out. Hillary Clinton says, before the election, I warned that there is no safe haven under authoritarianism. If they can ship Kilmar Abrego Garcia to a foreign prison accused of no crime with no trial, they can do it to anyone. Americans of conscience must stand against this now. I don't know what she's talking about saying that he's accused of no crime. He's an illegal alien. That's crime number 1. He's accused of beating his wife. That's crime number 2. He's accused of smuggling human beings across the country, no doubt as some part of criminal syndicate. He had 8 people or so that all claimed their residence was his house. They were traveling across the country with no luggage in his vehicle. All of this is clearly evidence to suggest that he is part of international crime. And the suggestion he's accused of no crime is absurd. Just because the Joe Biden the law enforcement administration let him through and let him off, that does not mean anything. It means nothing. That was a completely politicized Justice Department, FBI, et cetera, as we've heard 1,000 times, and we will hear it 1,000 more. So it's just such gaslighting to suggest that if you announce he's been accused of no crimes, it does not make it true. He's been accused of many crimes. So, and he's ties to MS-13. It's just, you've not proven that he has not had those ties. So this is they're obsessed with saying Trump is authoritarian, and they want to keep saying this is a constitutional crisis. This continues to be what's going on. Stephen Miller has been the most clear of thought on this. He was on Newsmax, and he explained this very clearly. Check this out.
It's insane to all thinking people. You have, in this case, illegal aliens from Venezuela sent here by Maduro, who are members of a foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Aragua, an organization that the intelligence community has found is operating at the direction of a hostile, adversarial foreign regime carrying out criminal enterprises to destabilize the political system in the United States. Those are the facts when it comes to TDA. So they're all illegal. They're all gang members. They're all foreign terrorists. And now we are being told that they cannot be expelled from our country without an extraordinary amount of individualized adjudication at the district court, circuit court, Supreme Court, up and down, up and down, up and down. No American citizen receives this level of so-called due process. Because it isn't due process. This is called infinity process to keep you here forever. Yeah. That's what this is.
Oh, no. That's right. I got a hot tweet right now. Those of you who go to my social media where I declare due process a hoax. It is an absolute hoax. These people are not entitled to due process. They're illegal aliens. And second of all, even if we wanted to give due process to illegal aliens, it is impossible. There's 30 million of them here, maybe more, who knows? And they're not all going to get their day in court. That would take hundreds of years probably for that to happen. So they're not getting due process. So all of it is a lie. These are all hoaxes. It's a hoax that he has not committed crimes. It's a hoax he's not tied to international gangs. It's a hoax that Abrego Garcia entitled to due process, or any illegal alien is entitled to due process. It is different. These are not American citizens. So, but the Democrats want to talk about this because when you let them fend for themselves, it all just looks very bad for them, because when you diversify the conversation, it never improves. Fox had a clip of some parents who were victims of illegal alien crime, and it's very powerful. Let me just play some of this clip.
To police officers.
The pain written all over the face of Pavel Osokin as he recalls being told his son Nikolai and his 19-year-old girlfriend Anya Varfolomeev, friends since they were kids, were gone.
They told me there was a horrible incident. My son and his girlfriend Anya basically were burned alive in their car. She was my daughter.
Anya's father, Anatoly, got a similar knock on the door that night.
He said Anya's name. I said, yes, it's my daughter. My wife came downstairs and she was screaming and crying. She said, no, 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 no.
In spring of 2022, a jury convicted Oscar Eduardo Ortega Anguiano on 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. A judge sentenced him to 10 years. But on Easter Sunday, the family say they received this notice from the California Department of Corrections that on July 19th,
okay, pause. So there you go.
out.
So you've got a family of 2 families of clearly legal immigrants. You can tell by the accents. And they lose 2 promising young people in a DUI manslaughter from an illegal alien who has no right to be here. And he was convicted. We keep him in jail instead of deporting him. And then he's going to get out early. So and live the rest of his life. It just as a parent, I have to say, it does hit harder. I know that everyone says that, and it should hit hard even if you're not a parent. But just the thought of losing one of my children when they're 19 years old to someone who has no right to be here, and then he gets out early. Only a bad country would behave that way. And we're behaving that way too often. And any lawmaker who that is how they approach legal immigration or illegal immigration and crime should be voted out summarily. So, Man, really, really, really tough stuff. So, but this is the issue, is that when the Democrats get talking, they sound very, very bad. I want to play you a clip of a congresswoman named Haley Stevens. Check this out. This is in our Congress.
I yield the gentlelady 30 additional seconds.
The gentlewoman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Cause of their servitude, sharing in the profession with those who have not come before you. Similar times of trying medical need, wars and flus past. You will see darkness, you will be pushed, and our society needs you to stand together at this time. Our country loves you. To our doctors and our nurses, I wear these laces.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland is reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized. The gentleman from Texas is now recognized. The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is no longer recognized. The gentlelady from Michigan.
Yeah, it's you know what I end up doing whenever I see crazy people like that? I always wonder what their family life is like. And I just had a quick search that she was married one time for 13 months. So just that would be tough. That would be tough. So she's a congresswoman from Michigan. She's running for Senate. That's why I bring this up. So that is Congresswoman Haley Stevens running for Senate. Maybe she'll be the next senator from Michigan. So I don't even know what she's talking about. It doesn't matter. There's a sense now that because Trump won or something that we don't have to have manners anymore. And I don't know where we got that notion. And we should not. We should have some manners, right? I mean, I can be rude every once in a while, but usually I know that I'm being rude and I am intentionally breaking a rule, because if you know the rules and you can break them, but it's this whole culture that these Democrats are just going to say as many bad words as they can. They're going to lie to your face. They're going to scream. They're going to act ratchet like Jasmine Crockett. Crockett was on Kimmel last night. I only have one short clip. I think we're going to endeavor to pull more for tomorrow or Friday as we get in towards the pre-end shows. Then we can do it. But here's some Crockett.
I actually wanted to be an anesthesiologist. So I've always been really good at math and science, but I didn't want to talk to people.
You wanted to put people to sleep, and you kind of are doing the opposite thing now.
Yes, I want them to be woke now.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty quick that she said she wants them to be woke, which is true. It's she does want people to be awake, and before she wanted to put them to sleep as an anesthesiologist. Interesting line of work if you want to get into the anesthesiology. I mean, it seems okay, though. And so, well, why not? It's probably you could set that up so it's lucrative, but it is an interesting choice when you go through the medical school. But she is admitting that the goal is she's still on the woke train. Dark woke is here, guys. I brought up in this show. It's going to continue. We got dark woke. Let's hear from Rosie. We got a Rosie clip.
Yes, as you know, some people entertain the idea of moving abroad after the 2024 election. You actually did it. Tell us about.
She's in Dublin, Ireland, by the way. So my condolences to all of you Irish.
Tell us about your experience so far, and do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Not a day has gone by that I thought it was the wrong decision. I was welcomed with open arms. I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country. And although I was not one of the celebrities who announced that that's what I would do, I made the decision within my family and my therapist. And should he win, and then when he did, we made the plan into action, and we were gone before he was inaugurated.
I'm not anti-therapy completely, but it is interesting that the mentally ill people go to therapy and then they somehow get nuttier. Like Rosie's probably been in therapy a long time, and I wonder if there's ever a check-in, which things aren't working. Because even listen to her monotone, she's clearly on something. I mean, how much would you guys bet she's on some sort of pharmaceutical prescription thing that she's on? She used to be an animated person. She was a comedian, an actress. And she's just talking like an AI robot. Maybe this is AI, Rosie, and I have a non-binary child because I'm nuts and I passed on my nuttiness to my child, and my therapist said you should leave America because I'm a bad loser. And it's like, how did she get this way? It's a bad advertisement for therapy. It really is.
Before he was inaugurated.
You've been a longtime critic of this Trump administration and a target of President Trump, for that matter, as well. What has it been like watching the last few months unfold from abroad?
It's been heartbreaking, I have to tell you. I knew that if I was in the United States and watched him destroy the country and the Constitution and really pay no mind to any of the laws that the founders stood by and that our country stands for as a beacon of shining light and freedom for the rest of the world, that should he do what the Heritage Foundation said he was going to do in that Project 2025, that we were going to be in big trouble. And it's as bad as they promised, and even a little bit worse. And it's been heartbreaking and personally very, very sad to watch.
So John McEntee, who's one of the guys at Heritage who was working on Project 2025, is sort of a friend of mine. I'll have to have him on and we'll break it down. But the main point of Project 2025 was to prepare the Trump administration to be able to staff the government. That was the main goal. Heritage used it for marketing, and they marketed, it was very bad. And I think that their marketing of Project 2025 was very damaging the Trump campaign. I have deep criticisms of how that was rolled out, because it did make it feel like Trump, instead of being a figurehead of his own movement, was part of some sort of establishment, astroturf, Washington-based thing that was much easier to attack than Trump himself. And it was not rolled out well. But the main point of Project 2025 was to prepare for when Donald Trump wins, that he can staff a government with people who've been vetted by people who have a basic sense of what Trump needs to do to be able to govern on day one. That's what Project 2025 was about. It was mostly a database of people who could work for the president and do a good job. So this acting like it was going to be this world-changing philosophical departure from anything that we've had in our past and be totally unfamiliar and to be fascist Nazi stuff, all of that was just total baloney. It was really a database of people who could go to work. So that's what it was. Yep. So Democrats just continue to struggle with leadership. Rosie is not going to be the leader. I don't think Haley Stevens is going to be a big leader. I'll tell you someone who's not going to be a big leader is Senator Dick Durbin. He's is not going to seek re-election. He was a mere 80 years old. So he said it's time to pass the torch. I don't get, why do you retire at 80 though? I mean, those are your best years in the Senate. I was thinking about my life and about what I need to do to prepare for retirement. I'm probably not going to be able to retire. I got too many children for that. I'm going to have to keep making money. But what I could do is I got to get myself in a position where 40 years from now, I could be a senator. So that's what I got to start thinking about. And so he's just given up on that. He's only 80 years old. Not good. Anyway, well, bad for Democrats, I guess. Durbin is been one of the worst guys in the Senate for a long time. You're always shocked to see people give up these seats. Illinois is an interesting state because they seem to just only elect left-wingers. If you're in Illinois, just tell me if you feel like there's any chance that seat could go to a Republican. I'm guessing it probably couldn't. I'm guessing it's not going to happen. Yeah, Misty's in my ear saying it's not going to happen. But what's so interesting, and Misty, tell me if this is your experience. If you look at a map, it's just Chicago is the only Democrat stronghold, and the rest of the state is all normal, just red counties. It's really only Chicago, but there's such population density in Chicago that it makes it that the state will just permanently be doomed to be governed by left-wing radicals. I mean, is that pretty much what it is? I mean, that's the impression that I've been able to glean. I haven't spent a lot of time in Illinois. Yeah, she's saying a couple extra blue dots, but mostly that's the take. Anyway, but that's the problem with these things and why I don't get overly animated about when these retirements happen. They just swap them out for the next guy. All right, a couple other items to highlight. Robert Kennedy Jr. is considering pulling the coronavirus vaccines from the official childhood vaccine schedule. I like that. We're generally a pro-vaccine household in the Marlow household because we're pro-Western medicine and it has been deeply studied by the members of the household, but one that's a absolute no-go for us has always been the coronavirus vaccine for children. Just no demonstrable proof that it's necessary, and to do a experimental vaccine on the kids it was never going to be for us. And it's an awkward conversation every time it comes up because we have so many kids who are constantly getting doctor visits, and every time we're going, they're not getting the coronavirus vaccine. It's not going to happen. Just to spare the families from that from now on. And if people want to go get them for the kids, I don't know. It's above my pay grade to say whether or not it should be legal or not, but it certainly should not be something that is just forced down your throat. There's just no evidence that it's that necessary. Ever, especially now with the way the virus is, where it's so much more prevalent probably, but also so much more mild in terms of the symptoms that a coronavirus diagnosis would cause these days. It just never should have been for the kids, and absolutely not right now. So good for Kennedy, and I like these chipping away, stuff like that. A very hot story that I will encourage you to go to Breitbart.com for more on this. I don't want to dwell too much on it because the show would get too long, but we probably will talk to Nolte about this later in the week. A lot of drama over at CBS, where Shari Redstone, who is the chair of Paramount, has put on huge pressure on 60 Minutes to stop being so biased against right-wing stuff. And she wants 60 Minutes to give the facts and not opinions. And this has led to resignations, or a major resignation from a producer at 60 Minutes. And there's a hot story because a lot of people are seeing this as a real Rorschach test. A lot of people who are sick of media bias are saying this is great that she's cracking down on fake news at 60 Minutes. But a lot of people who are more favorable towards the establishment in our media are saying that she's killing 60 Minutes and is trying to destroy the news brand and is actually controlling speech herself. So, because this is a tricky argument the left has, which is that you do have the right to spread misinformation. The issue is, though, is that also if you're on a board, you have the right to request that people stop doing that. So that's pretty cool, and that's out there. Canada, we're heading into early voting for the Canadian election. I guess that's a good place to stop, because that's what we're going to get into with Emma Jo Morris, among other topics. One of the great, most entertaining people in all of conservative media, probably all of media in general. Broke the laptop from Health Scoop, and is always interesting to check in with her. And I think that's it. We got a lot more. We got a lot more on the docket for the week, but let's get into it with Emma right now. The media is broken. For decades, big cable and legacy media have filtered information to hide the truth. But thanks to podcasts and new media like this show, the truth can break through, providing voices and views the legacy outlets block from the air. But big cable still has one major way to control information, and that's access. They do this by limiting access to something called spectrum, the invisible airwaves that power affordable wireless internet, and by forcing you into their bundles, keeping independent media out of reach. Trump and Republicans in Congress have a chance to do something big here by making more spectrum available and breaking big cable's stranglehold on information. So there's a couple things you could do to find out more. You can go to endthecableopoly.org. That's endthecableopoly.org for more information about how to make more spectrum available. And if you're convinced, you should call your senators and your members of Congress and say, hey, why don't you work with President Trump and try to make more spectrum available? So endthecableopoly.org to find more. All right. Alex and friends, today, Emma Jo Morris is here, and it was funny because right before I hit the record button, she said she doesn't like the guest shows as much as when I'm by myself, which is just unbelievable to say. I've never had a guest say that because I know Emma listens to the show, and then she would prefer if there's no guest. Well, there is a guest today because it's you, Emma. Is this your fourth time or third time here?
I think it's my fourth time.
I think it's your fourth. So that puts you ahead. That puts you ahead.
For everybody who clicks off the show now, I understand. I do the same thing.
That's so funny. I don't think they click off when you're here. I think Marlow's friends are Marlow's friends for a reason. I had to talk to someone about Canada. I'm absolutely going crazy for this. We don't know who's going to win, but you guys had it. You guys had the guy, Pierre Poilievre. He looks great. He sounds great. He's super smart. He's super presentable. He's got good manners. It seems like he's great on the values. He can take down a lib. He can own a lib, a tomahawk dunk on him while eating an apple. And yet, somehow, he's blowing it to this dummy, Mark Carney. I played the Mark Carney clips. The guy can't string a sentence together. He was Trudeau's right-hand guy, and somehow it looks like Carney's pulling away in the polls. And so I check in with Frances Martel, our world editor at Breitbart, and I say, Frances, what's going on? And apparently, Poilievre is running on tax cuts, like cutting the corporate tax rate and cutting spending and all this stuff that didn't work for the Republican establishment in America 15 years ago. And he's not running on crime. He's not running on corruption. He's not running on the deep state. He's not running on immigration. He's not running on resetting trade. I don't get it. Can you help me understand, please?
Yeah, this is such a painful thing to watch, honestly. The reason why I don't know, I want to get all the listeners up to speed. If there's any new listeners who don't know me and us and this whole relationship. But one low-key thing about me is that I grew up in Canada. I am Canadian. I'm also American. I am American. I don't use the half American thing. I'm American, but I grew up in Canada.
You've earned your due process if we're going to have to deport you for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any knuckle tattoos.
We're just going to refer to you. We're going to refer to you as New York woman from now on the show. That's going to be.
Thank you.
Emma's title. Missy, can we put a little lower third headline title for Emma as a New York woman? Like that'll be her title for today.
American, not Canadian. But anyway, so I did grow up there. I lived there till I was 23. And obviously my family lives there. So this is very sad to watch. It's my home. I lived there for most of my life and it's been completely destroyed. And I thought that there was going to be some hope to repair it in some way, at least in some meaningful way. And that hope seems to be dying with every passing day. Obviously, the election is still in a week and the polls could be wrong. Actually, according to my dad, the polls are wrong. But
Well, this happened with
anecdotal and not scientific. The polls are scientific, and they say that he's tanking. So what that is about is, and I think I understand it. So the main issue in Canada, the main issue in Canada that's identified by Canadians and in their consciousness is the economy. I think that there's a lot of factors that go into the economy, and it's suffering right now, and the inflation that are other issues, but whatever. Let's call it the economy is their main issue. And almost secondary, but I say almost secondary because it seems at this point to be on par, is Canadians' anger toward Trump and the Trump derangement syndrome that is so pervasive in Canada, even among people who want to vote conservative in Canada. So this nosedive of Poilievre's numbers and performance started. It was a combination of the Trump tariffs and attacking Canada, and then also Trudeau stepping aside. Trudeau was obviously the main foil, the one responsible for so much damage in Canada after almost 10 years in power, and he just kind of eliminated himself from the conversation. So all of a sudden, that main foil was just evaporated. And then at the same time, Trump is attacking Canada, and who most resembles Trump in Canada but Poilievre, or he did. But then, so what happened following that was Poilievre panicked and completely backed off everything that was making him popular in the first place, which was his populist conservative messaging, because people were associating that messaging with Trump and then associating him with Trump, and they hate Trump. Right. So therefore, his whole thing fell apart.
Right. So it seemed like he has to strike this balance where he has to be tough enough to stand up to Trump. But also, I bet a lot of people who are conservatives in Canada are thinking, well, we want a guy like Trump. We want someone who is going to move fast and break stuff. That's what we need right now, because we've had the same. How long has Trudeau been in there? 12 years? 10 years. So he's been there 10 years. And so they're probably thinking we need a big shakeup here. And that is a tough needle to thread, Emma, but it's also the job. That is what you have to do. So there's no complaining here. Play like a champion.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is the thing that, yes, it's a tough needle to thread, but he could have done it in a thoughtful way. First of all, you're accepting what he has done is he has accepted the premise that the CBC and the Liberal Party have put forth, which is Trump bad, which is actually totally insane, especially in Canada. That is totally insane. The United States is the oxygen that allows Canada to live. And Trump understands that, which is why he was threatening them and wanting to renegotiate trade deals, because he knows that the United States has total leverage over Canada, which is what created this panic in the first place. But instead of, so it's not about Trump, it's America. It's America. And the American people and the Canadian people are brothers and cousins. And most families have families split between those two, that border. It's preposterous to reject the United States as represented by Trump right now. To throw the baby out with the bathwater just because Trump people have a negative opinion of Trump in Canada. What he should have done and what would have made sense, and I think what would have allowed him to survive, is to say, hold on, it is absolutely suicidal to allow Trump derangement syndrome to dictate our policy here. This is not about Trump. The United States is much bigger than Trump. The United States is a nation of 300 million people, and we rely on their economy to survive, and we love those people. Trump is their leader. We have to respect him. That's fine. We have to negotiate with him. That's fine. But not only should we not be rejecting Trump, we must align with Trump for our survival and for our prosperity. Duh.
Yes.
And instead, he just went into this panicky, no, I'm not Trump. And I'm going to back off of everything that I was talking about that kind of sounds like Trump, but that was good. And instead talk about tax cuts and go totally neutral and totally vanilla, which has cost him, I think, this race. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the tariffs because this is a big puzzle. And Mark Carney's a finance guy, economics guy. So maybe he's able to successfully position himself better than Poilievre. But the issue with Carney is that Carney was working for Trudeau, and Trudeau was messing everything up. So what is the perception amongst the Canadian voters about what is to be done about Trump's tariffs? Because recall that other than China, Canada is the only nation that's acted at all hostile towards the United States. It is stunning how every nation around the world is either been neutral, and this includes the super states like in Europe, but every nation has been, in terms of policy, has been neutral or positive to what Trump is doing, trying to work with us. Canada has pushed back in some ways as well, which is interesting. So who's winning the messaging battle on the tariffs? I figure it's got to be Carney, but how?
Well, so that's it. So Poilievre has done this weird thing where he has joined this kind of jingoistic messaging.
Yeah.
That's as apparently like working and popular in Canada, except that it does not address the issue of the tariffs. Obviously, Canada does not have the ability to sustain itself independent of the United States. And they even have trade barriers between provinces.
Right.
Like their system cannot survive that, obviously. And then Carney has taken the same kind of hyper-nationalist messaging, but then now has pivoted and said, no, we are going to work out a deal with Trump. But he kind of has this oppositional position to Trump because he is liberal that makes Canadians, I guess, feel like they're being represented better as opposed to somebody who is conservative, who may just kind of collapse into Trump or fold into Trump and be the same thing. I don't know. I mean, this thing is like, it's not even based in logic. It's completely psychological. It's like ridiculous. Obviously, Carney is not a better economic policy guy than Poilievre. You could say what you want about Poilievre's kind of tinkering, it seems, that he's talking about now of the economy, but Carney is a green energy guy.
Yeah.
Carney is obviously certifiably insane on this issue.
Right.
He doesn't have like a mixed bag of a pass on this. It's like a very radical black and white kind of pass that he has on it, and a totally obvious track record that's like very material and tangible. So this is like very confusing for me, and it's all just how people feel about him and his image versus, Poilievre's feeling and image that they have about him and him in relation to Trump. Nobody has taken this debate past Trump and talked about the partnership with the United States.
So we had a great podcast with Brian Lilly, who was up there in Canada and is a reporter, about a month or so ago.
That I did listen to.
Yeah, that would have been worth it too. That was a great episode. But he was talking about the infiltration of China. Let me read to you a little passage from Francis Martel's latest report for us at Breitbart. And this type of stuff that just makes you want to throw your laptop through a window. Nearly entirely absent from the campaign is a nefarious attempts by the Chinese Communist Party to infiltrate the election and influence Canadian politics. The Canadian government revealed in early April that it had discovered coordinated, inauthentic behavior, apparently originating in China, promoting Mark Carney, but dismissed it as ineffective. Carney recently traveled to China in October as part of his role with Brookfield Asset Management, and according to the state media there, encouraged foreign business to invest there. Poilievre has mentioned Carney's apparent China ties in passing, which is especially alarming given China admitted to killing Canadian citizens on dubious drug charges. What? But has primarily focused his messaging on improving the cost of living and lowering taxes in China. So you've got Chinese infiltration on behalf of Carney, Chinese literally killing Canadians, but Poilievre wants to talk about tax cuts. I mean, where has he been the last decade?
Yeah, that's another huge missed opportunity. It's so painful. And I think I said this on your show at the time that this was all kind of blowing up. I think it was the last time I was on your show, which is this is so obviously Trump's whole game, and he has revealed that at this point now, is all about China. And it's about rerouting direction of the global economy toward the United States and away from China, right? And Canada is so essential to that vision because obviously, first of all, it is directly next to us. It's another huge country in our hemisphere, and they are a client state of China. They are obviously a supplicant of China. And not only I don't know about the stuff that Francis was talking about. I don't doubt it, obviously. And she keeps up with it more closely than I do. But I mean, there's all kinds of Chinese secret police stations in Canada. They even had a huge scandal where China had basically like corrupted a few of their politicians, and they wouldn't say who. It was like this. It was like a scandal on top of a scandal, all at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party, and like how Poilievre has not talked about this still is stunning. It's stunning, and you wonder like, what is the reason for that? Is he really that out of touch? Really that petrified? Like, what is happening? And you realize too, when you start to think about it, that there is no redeeming reason. Like, you know, there's no reason that you can come up with that's like, oh, okay, like I get it. No, it's like every single reason that you think of, either because he doesn't know, or because he's scared, or because he's scared of the media. None of that looks good for him. And, you know, so it's very upsetting that his numbers are going so low. But at the same time, I'm like, are you earning this? Are you earning the prime ministership?
Yeah, it is a fantastic question. That is, you got to go take it. Bannon had a great phrase. If you're going to take Vienna, take Vienna. I think it's got to be Napoleon, right? Is that where that comes from? Yeah, but it's such a Bannon. It really is. It's more of a Bannon phrase now because I heard him say it 1,000 times. It really is such a crucial thing to understand here in this, is that this is this historic opportunity and is being lost. And I'm just warning people, if you're Canadian and you're involved, do not assume the polls are off. Get busy here. When did they go to the polls? You can cast ballots this weekend. Is that where it's coming up?
Yeah. So there's early voting, but the 28th is election day.
Wow. Okay. Coming up. So we'll have reports on it. So Emma, you might have to make your 5th visit to the Marlow Show coming up after this thing goes down. But maybe I'll be too depressed. I'm really rooting for you guys up there. I've never been to Canada. I've never been.
Yeah. Like, oh, you have never been to Canada? That's
never been to Canada. Isn't that wild?
Especially if you're on the West Coast, you have like the best Canada right above you.
I know. And we've got friends who are have made a little bit of money and have access to elite skiing, and I've still never figured out how to get up there. So I don't know. I'm not a perfect guy. I'm not a perfect guy. What can I say?
It's right there, and it's beautiful. But, you know, listen, don't get me wrong. If he somehow pulls this off, I'll be ecstatic. I mean, he's obviously, despite all of his faults and despite the fact that we've been ripping on him for like 30 minutes straight, he is obviously a better option than Carney. You know, I haven't been impressed with his performance during the campaign, at least in the last stretch of it. It doesn't mean that I don't want him to win. I hope that he does, and I'm happy to eat my words if he does. I just like the vibe feels losing the election.
I don't know. He just came off as a stone cold moron every time I played clips of him, which I don't say this about everyone. I mean, I only say this about Carney and David Hogg. I mean, they're the only two people that I will say that about.
He's an overeducated idiot.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, since I have you, I will take advantage and I will get your take on a couple other items. Any thoughts on the big tariff debate that's going on?
Yeah, definitely. You know, my thoughts are kind of about like the PR of it. I'm not an economist. You know, you don't want me on instead of John Carney, to talk about tariffs, unless it's from this angle, which is something that I do feel like I have my arms around a lot of thoughts about. Like, I'm watching like Besant kind of come out yesterday and say like these tariffs are unsustainable. By the way, I love Besant. I think that he was a great choice. But he comes out yesterday and talks about how the China tariffs are unsustainable.
Well, he said specifically a prolonged trade war with China is not. So, but I think it's one of these things where we all know that, but he actually verbalized. Folks, have you seen what's happened to gold this year? It's up 25%, over $3,400 an ounce. Meanwhile, the stock market, it's total chaos, bouncing around, losing trillions of dollars. The Dow could have just seen the worst month since the Great Depression. Inflation's still running hot. We got the national debt at $36 trillion. All that spells chaos. But then there's gold, which Goldman Sachs says could hit $3,700 an ounce this year. And I've got friends at Priority Gold that can get you a free gold guide now that will teach you how you can buy gold for yourself. You'll learn how to lock in today's gold prices, and you'll learn how to invest in an IRA or 401k with gold, tax and penalty free. And all you got to do is text the letters SNC, as in Salem News Channel. Text SNC to the number 24999 to get your free 2025 gold guide right now. Just text SNC, like Salem News Channel, SNC to 24999, and you'll get your free gold guide now. Gold prices could increase at any time. That's why you got to text SNC to 24999 now to get in there.
And then the Wall Street Journal has a story this morning, I think, saying, some tariffs on China are going to be backed off from because they just are going to hurt too bad, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed because listen, I'm the first person to say decoupling from China and reshoring manufacturing is not something that I want to do, but something that I think is necessary to do. I think that the amount of exposure we have by having all of our manufacturing in China is super dangerous. And aside from that, it's like there's something undignified about it. Like that we can't take care of our own country and we can't take care of ourselves, that we have to lean on China and rely on China for such basic things. Like I just find it like spiritually insulting almost. So I'm the first person to say I think that this is necessary. And then I'm the first person to say I think any pain associated with it, which is inevitable, is also something that I would be willing personally to sustain if it meant that at the end of it we get sovereignty back. And I'm not in a world where I don't think that pain would come with this fight. But then that said, it's like my thinking is, well, why weren't there 1,000 surrogates on every single station, every single outlet, doing interviews with every single person possible in media to say, listen, we have a huge task before us and it's for our kids and our grandkids, and it's to decouple from China. And it's to reroute trade back to the United States and manufacturing back to the United States. This is essential for our national security and it's essential for our future.
Yeah. So
there's means to this end, and we have to get behind it. And this is a war effort, and that didn't happen. So now it's kind of like after the tariffs have been put on, and after we're basically, they don't like to use the word trade war, but obviously it is one. I think after we're already in the middle of it, all of a sudden now it's kind of like, oh yeah, like the pain, we can't handle that. Maybe it can't handle this amount of pain, but I'm like, why don't you just set it up that way in the first place? And that's kind of, I think, what's bothering me about it. The effort is noble and moral and necessary, but I just wish that everybody was on the same page about what this entailed, and then we could just go do it right.
Well, I think the balance of the messaging is what's off, is that there's a lot of focus on justifying the economics of it, which are going to be complicated. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. And there's not nearly enough conversation about the other factors here. Number one, China never held responsible for the coronavirus. Number two, China's never been held responsible for fentanyl. Number three, it's a national security threat if we're dependent on them for electronics and for pharmaceuticals and for basics for manufacturing. Number four, they're Belt and Road debt trap diplomacy, where they have an economy that's basically based off of the lead, which is led by exports and manufacturing overcapacity. That's not great for us geopolitically. And once you start from that, then you think, oh, yeah, maybe we should put some pressure on them. And it feels like versus having a hot war with them, maybe some tariffs will help. And then you hear a guy like Scott Besson, who clearly is a teacher. I asked Carney has he ever taught before? Because he's got this patience with idiots. Like he has this ability to talk to idiots, and he seems incredibly patient with their terrible questions whenever I see him do media. And it's just like, oh, this guy must be an amazing teacher. And I think he has taught at some elite places. I got to look that. I should have looked it up before the show.
It's Yale.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So you can tell that he's argued with idiots who think they're smart his whole life, because he's got this sort of serenity to him while he's explaining why they're wrong. So then you send him out there and he explains why this actually might work on an economic level, but that's fine with me, because I'm looking more at that. Looking out at 100 years, the personal level that we cannot have a society where we're building a second-class citizenship in America while simultaneously allowing for the sweatshops to continue in China. Like, that's not good for the soul. We got to get past that too. And then hopefully economically, this works out better for the American people. I think it will. But I know maybe it'll be messy along the way, but I'm comfortable with that because of all the other intangibles that are clearly better with Trump's plan. And no one's really doing that. And I feel like, I don't know if you can do it from inside. Maybe you need an outside surrogate to make that case. I hand up, happy to help. But it just feels like that's absent from the conversation more than it should be.
Well, exactly. And, Trump has never had the kind of support that he had over the last election. I mean, people came out in force for not just Trump. I mean, Trump, some people like his personality, some people don't. But what they came out in force for was major reform, major change. And he has that political capital now. He could have and had his people come out, and Besson come out, who is does have this ability to he has this aura about him where he is super calm, super intellectual, but really effective as a communicator, and say you voted for major reform, you voted for major change. We are about to reroute the global economy to the Western Hemisphere. So lock in. And we're going to do that. And that's the point of this. That's the reason. Right. I think people are reasonable on this, and they get frustrated with Biden inflation, where prices are just shooting up for no tangible reason and no tangible return. This was a completely different circumstance. This isn't just, prices going up, voters mad. No. This is prices going up because our sovereignty is at stake and we're at a war for it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. So, all right. So this is ongoing, and we're going to keep holding the line. And it feels like things are in a place very interesting for news. Let's put it that way. So we'll have continual updates in that. So Emma, you're a new parent. So Trump is now, I guess, lightly endorsed a $5,000 cash payment to mothers after childbirth. By the way, if there are two mothers, you get a double cash payment. That's one we're gonna have to figure that one out. But what's your thoughts on this?
Constitutional crisis.
Yeah, it really could be. It really could be. What are your thoughts on this? Because I have to admit, having had 4 in the last 7 years, I would like my $20K if that's available to me. But also, we can't afford any of this, so it's another handout. But also, we do need to encourage people to have more kids. And who's going to take advantage of this? Is this going to be people who are in stable families, the nuclear families, or is there going to be a lot of people who are just going to try to get themselves knocked up to get the bag? It seems very, very complicated. And I just want to figure out what Hungary's doing, and are we doing that? And this is not that. So, but again, I like the conversation because we needed more kids.
Yeah, well, I feel the same way. It feels like maybe a first attempt, just throwing something up against the wall to create pro-family policies, which I like the spirit of it. But right, exactly, those details matter. Are we talking about 2-parent households where the parents are married versus having a kid?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between the type of culture that is promoted from single parenthood to 2-parent households. I'm not
right.
That isn't derogatory. It's just
it's just true. Yeah.
But I'm not hating on single parents. God forbid. It happens. And if you want,
we like the nuclear family though in general. I mean,
the point of this policy is obviously to incentivize certain behavior, and you want to be quite specific about the behavior that you are incentivizing. Right. But that's separate from the fact of what you just said, which was the first thing that occurred to me, which is $5,000 from where? What are we talking?
Yeah.
It sounds good, but it's also maybe there's more effective ways to do that without just doing the kind of handout thing, which again, I'm not necessarily opposed to financial incentives. Actually, I'm not opposed to them at all, but I just think that it should be thoughtful so that it's thoughtful, so it's not wasteful, so it's not.
And the blanket 5K is also interesting because I just feels like, for me, it's I keep having kids, but it's that's not a little bit more than a month of my wife's medical school loans. So it's we're not going to have a kid, so we can cover 1 month of medical loans. That's not going to happen. So I don't know. It feels so. This seems like a very soft launch, but I like the idea of rethinking this plan because I know that other nations are trying to incentivize parenthood and it's working. And we do need to have more children because especially if we're going to crack down on illegal immigration, which we need to, but we do have laborers we're importing a lot of laborers. And then I think we can start if we have a reset where we're encouraging family formation and we're cracking down on illegal aliens, then we can finally have a conversation about what America really is going to look like and what an appropriate level of legal immigration and what qualifies to make a good legal immigrant. we can finally have those discussions if we start setting things up in a way that makes some level of sense. But clearly whatever we're doing now is not working, where we're not encouraging family formation, and we're encouraging people to cross the border illegally until, 3 months ago.
Even like the economic stuff aside, like I 100% obviously agree. And there's economic reasons why you need people in your country, and all of that is true. But I also feel like the other angle for this, which maybe should be stressed more, I think is a potent point and a true point, is like having kids makes you like the happiest you could ever be. Like it really makes you so much happier. And I think that there is like this kind of spiritual and just mood malaise in the country. I think that it started maybe during the after the economic crash in 2008, and kind of maybe ticked up a little bit, but then ticked way down after COVID, and people were like really depressed. And I think COVID really revealed like an emotional sickness in the country that's pervasive and widespread. And having kids just like literally makes you a better person. It makes you a happier person, makes you much more responsible, much more thoughtful. And those are things that I think should be treated as real and valued. Like there's economic reasons to have kids, but you can make economic arguments for things that are maybe not necessarily wholesome or good for the mood of the country. Kids is the economic thing, but it's also like something that will just, I think, again, like restore some spirit and soul into the country and into its people, which I think we could use.
Amen to that. You know that you as a listener to the show, as well as a frequent guest, Emma, you know that I agree with every word of that. It's good for the soul. It's good for who you are as a person. It makes you a better person, in my opinion, for most people. I'm not saying that there aren't some people, and I got a couple of mine in my life who I know are not meant to have kids, I can tell. But for most people, and we're speaking generalities, It is the right move. And to have one more than you can afford, that's the move. So you have as many as you can afford, then one extra. That's the move.
That was your advice to me too.
Yeah, just one more. Not two more, because you don't want to be too distracted with the financial burdens of it all. But it's interesting because I feel like we're slightly ideologically emerging from this thought that you can just become a VP at Facebook and that's better than having a family that we brainwashed women with for decades. But it's going to take time. I think it's going to take for the millennials to start hitting 50. And then once that happens, you're going to see a lot of regret, and then and I think that there'll be some course correction, but that's 10 years off so we could still see this phenomenon. We could still see the birth rate decline, I think, for at least that long. So we got to start, but the sooner we talk about it, the sooner we can start correcting this thing, because there's going to be a lot of unhappy and not satisfied people in the autumn of their lives when they realize they missed out on the families. So
I wonder how far off that is, because there was actually a poll just done by Yale, that I mean, obviously, again, like this is you're taking a logical leap. So but I mean, Gen
God forbid.
Z under 21, right? I'm extrapolating a point.
Yeah.
But Gen Z voters under 21, it says lean conservative by 11.7 points. Yeah. That's remarkable. And obviously, I think males and females get to that conservative conclusion for different reasons. But I think for females, a lot of it has to do with the messaging around their purpose, their existential reason in society, and how much of a lie it is, how much of an obvious lie the left has told them.
Total lie.
And what their teachers have told them, and what society and marketing and TikTok has told them, which is like to be a girl boss. And like, I think that they are actually realizing that there's no more hollow existence than being a girl boss. And likewise that there's something like really fulfilling about having kids and also raising them.
Yeah, it's one of these things where, from my personal experience, the one thing that could happen that could work out is I think that a lot of people my age and younger, and tell me if you're in this group, Emma, who feel like the American dream is really hard to get, where you get you get the Lexus in the driveway and you get the house with the picket fence, and you're socking away money for retirement, and you're doing it off of one job. Like that's impossible. It feels like for most people, and I know this because and to do all of that before you have children is almost impossible unless you inherit money or you are made an amazing crypto play or something. It's like I don't really see how that happens. And I know this because I have a upper middle class job, and I got to the top of my field, and my wife's a medical doctor, and so I barely was able to get the house while my wife was pregnant with our first kid. And I know I literally got to the top of my field where I was on the cover of magazines and stuff, and we got a very inexpensive a mortgage thanks to her being a doctor, which made her qualify for us having to have a low down payment. And so like, that's what it took for us. So what's it going to take for normal people who are just, you're just a good plumber and, you make 110 grand a year because you're good at, like, are you going to be able to buy a big house and get all that done before you have kids? It's not going to happen for most people.
Not even like a moderate house. And of course. And I think that also has a lot to do with the results of that poll that we just talked about. And people's just like disillusionment with the left and the policy, the culturally dominant policies and messaging from the last 20 years. It's just like, okay, that's all like nice or whatever, but none of this is the promise that I thought I got when I was born an American.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm hoping what people will see is they'll say, F it, let's just have the kids. Like I'm hoping that's what will happen and that could be very good because that could be very good for us culturally. And I told you to keep you 20 minutes. We're already at 30 and I didn't get to Abrego Garcia, the Italian. So I want to talk to you about it. Did you hear my show yesterday? Because Maxwell Frost, he pointed this out. He's Abrego Garcia. He's using an Italian accent to say the word Abrego. So we now know he's Italian. He's not El Salvadorian.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to labor too long on it. Obviously, I think we have the same ideas about this case. The Democrats, as usual, are absolutely committing public suicide by picking a political fight over this and this guy and using this guy as their like symbol. First of all,
they like diversity. They found an Italian El Salvadorian gang member. I mean, it's just really unbelievable.
They always shoot and miss the target so hard. Like, it's funny, actually, this conversation was private, so I'm not going to say who it was with, but I'm cool with a big left-wing activist. And I just really like her, and we agree on more than you would think. And she's like a left-wing populist activist.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and we were talking about this, and she was flipping out because and this is, again, a progressive left-wing activist, like not a passive Democrat, not like I'm talking about like the real deal who's like around, and you would absolutely know her if I said her name. And she was tripping because she was like, why are they all like flying to El Salvador to go to an El Salvadorian prison to go and like prostrate themselves in front of this guy when we have Black Americans who are in jail without due process, in her opinion, right here.
Yeah.
When was the last time they cared about mass incarceration or unfair justice in the United States?
Right.
Like, where are you? And she was talking about how frustrating and insulting it is to so many marginalized communities in the United States who are American citizens, who are the ones who vote in the first place, that the Democrats are in a frenzy over an illegal alien who she wouldn't comment on, obviously, whether or not he was gang affiliated, but she didn't even care. Because it's like, who is this person? This is not a constituent. This isn't real. And this person has no roots in this country.
A constituent is right. I was wondering about this yesterday with Maxwell Frost, who I really I'm just so delighted. He could be my new Jasmine Crockett. No one could be that guy. I mean, I'm getting my hopes up if that's the case. But he represents Mickey and Donald in Disneyland. Like, he's the Orlando congressman, and he's like in El Salvador for a illegal alien from Maryland. Come on, I mean, it's delicious.
Yeah, Maryland man. But yeah, it's infuriating to everybody. I don't know who the Democrats think they're pandering to other than illegal aliens and members of MS-13. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm stumped. I don't get it.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, Emma, this has always been a delight, and it's why I always keep you so long. And I hope I didn't even. Oh, look at that! You got a hard out in 8 minutes anyway. So it's. I was cutting it real close. Hey, can I plug anything for you? You have a great Twitter. What is your Twitter? Your Twitter.
Thank you. Emma Joe NYC.
Emma Joe NYC. You have a great Twitter.
Because my lovely, devoted fans and followers, some of them have been writing vitriolic hate mail to my company in like the contact email saying that I'm right wing and a bitch. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the show.
Yeah, you can.
So when you go to my Twitter, you'll see my bitchy right-wing opinions, and then you'll see me tweeting, stop emailing my boss saying I'm a right-wing bitch. They know.
Yeah, it's really nasty that they do that. I mean, who would have the thought that if you – does anyone on our side do that? Maybe we do now, but I don't think it's a big thing. I think it's an automatic, basically.
Well, I think it's something that we started doing. We adopted from the left, but the left is still king at that. And I just find it so funny because I have like over 100,000 followers on Twitter. Like, do you think that my boss hired me like not aware of like – like my opinions and the fact that I like share them?
No, it's just harassment, and it's just, they're trying to exhaust your company. They're just trying to exhaust people, and they're trying to send a message to other people also that this is how it's going to be. That you're signing up for a world of hurt just by having these vocalizing these opinions publicly. It's just so nasty. The left has always done it though. So it's just part of the thing. If you put your hand up and you want to be a part of the conservative movement, just know that if you get big, you will get harassed. Your family will get harassed. The carpool lines will alternately get less pleasant and more pleasant depending on the news cycle, whatever's going on that day. You'll be forced to defend every single stupid opinion on Twitter. And,
well, we're keeping on. Please feel free to stop by my account. And
yeah, you absolutely should. Emma Joe NYC on Twitter. All right, Emma. We'll do this again probably soon after the Canadian elections, after Poilievre gets his mind right and figures out a way to win, we hope.
All right. Thank you so much.
That's today's show. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you in the Marlow audience, telling 10,000 friends and family members about the show. You can email me, aloha@alexmarlow.com to correspond. Talk to you tomorrow.